So on today's date, September 26th in the year 1983, there was a young officer by the name of Stanislav, probably screwing this up, Petrov, who was working in a facility in the Soviet Union, and his job was to make sure that if the detection devices detected a nuclear missile strike coming in from the United States, to update his chain of command, tell them that there were missiles coming so that they could launch a retaliatory strike. Now, Petrov at that time knew that if he called his superiors and said that there were missiles coming from the United States, they would immediately launch a full-scale attack on the U.S., which would assure that the U.S. and all of its allies would launch a full-scale attack on the USSR. This is a policy known as mutually assured destruction. Well, on this day, a little after midnight, so many years ago in 1983, Petrov saw 4 missiles on his radar system, on the satellite system, coming in from the continental United States. And he knew, given his training and his experience, that given the totality of the circumstances, that was likely a computer error because the United States wouldn't have a first strike of only 4 missiles coming in over the Atlantic. It turned out later on that Petrov was right, and that those missiles coming in was just water in a cloud that was misread by a satellite and ended up being absolutely nothing. And so Petrov, even though he kind of denies it, because he doesn't like talking about the incident, at least he didn't until he died very recently, he saved the world from World War III, from a disaster that would have killed, surely, everyone who is watching this today. Now, what does that have to do with rookie cops versus veteran cops? Well, because the big difference between a rookie and a veteran is that the veteran says, nah, we're not doing that. That doesn't make any sense. Nope, not going to happen. Now, Petrov was disciplined for what he did that day. Initially, they said he did the right thing, but then later on, administrators got involved, people above the general who was in charge of him, said that he did the wrong thing, that he should have reported to his bosses, and that because of that, long story short, he got kind of pushed into early retirement. I think he was a lieutenant colonel at the time, definitely a veteran Army officer. That ability to say, no, we're not doing that, is what really separates a rookie cop from a veteran cop. And we've talked about discretion before, and some people got very upset about me saying discretion is a matter of liability and how much liability you're willing to take on and how much personal responsibility you're willing to take on about the decisions that you make. In that case, Petrov was the ultimate veteran officer. He knew that if he reported up the chain, that there was going to be massive destruction, that him and his family and everybody he's ever known was going to die. He knew it was his duty, and the rules said he had to report it, but it didn't make sense to him at the time to do that because he knew no one would take the time to stop and think if he didn't. So given the exigency of the circumstances and the totality of the circumstances and his training and experience, which was significant, he decided on his course of action. And he ended up getting punished a little bit for it in the end, but all the way till his dying day, every interview he ever gave of it said that he was never punished and he doesn't blame anybody for having to retire early or where his career went after that incident, because he knew he did the right thing. And there's something to be said for that. There's an ideology there that I think it would be best if a lot more people had in their daily lives, and especially in police work. So that's my rant for today. I'm going to turn my air conditioning back on now. Oh, it's got awful hot here. But it was a very interesting story. It came up on my timeline. For YouTube, I was actually watching a video that talked about the incident that was made several years ago, but I'm sure it popped up just because, of the date. And I was watching, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. That really says something. Imagine having that type of testicular fortitude to say, like, nope, this doesn't make any sense. We're not doing that. He couldn't confirm what he was seeing. He knew there's a good chance it was BS. So he said, no, we're not reporting up the chain so they can have a nuclear strike. So let's go. Let's go up to the top. We'll read some comments here. Juan Diego says, hey Juan, everything good? Everything's great. Karimu says second. That's great. Jacob says that guy saved the world. He certainly did. If you're just coming in now, go back and watch the whole live stream. I'm going to try to put Petrov's picture as the thumbnail for this whenever I get back home and to a computer and I can do it. I can't do it from my phone. I wish I could. Billy Bob says, hey. Dimitri says, hey, FFT, can you do a video on your thoughts on police and security using pistol lanyards? We don't really use pistol lanyards in the United States. I don't have any experience with using pistol lanyards. I know that the guys that do, I have noticed, do a lot of either rappelling or skydiving, so that kind of makes sense, or scuba diving, where you're more likely to lose the pistol. But with modern, like level 2, level 3 holster, the SLS holster, the Spider-Man holsters, it's not as common anymore to use a pistol lanyard. I don't think I've ever, in real life, in person, seen a cop or security guard using a pistol lanyard. Christian says, great story, great video. Glad you like it. Leonard says, hi. Karimu says, you ever used MREs? What was your fave? It's been a long time since I had an MRE. We used to use them in scouts. I was never in the military. We used to use them in scouts for like really, really long hikes. If you wanted to carry food with us, it made sense to bring an MRE because they're pretty stable food, and you could have one MRE for a kid. It's enough for like all day, like 2,400 calories. I don't remember which one I liked. Cutlery Novice says, experienced common sense. Common sense isn't always common, especially when somebody's career is at risk. But at the end of the day, you got to remember you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror about the decisions that you make when you're at work. And that's the same thing for Petrov in the Soviet Union when he saw the missiles coming in and thought it was BS. It's the same thing for the guy making decisions about what he's going to do on the street in the United States as a cop. Bubbles says, good stuff as always. I love the content. Keep it up. Thank you, Bubbles. Mike Wilkerson! Hey, you caught my live stream. How's it going? Mutually assured destruction. What a period in history. I wrote a paper on the whole Star Wars thing. What parts jog your memory of what you've read? You're too young to have been around for it. You mean the Star Wars program where they're going to shoot ballistic missiles down? It's my understanding, not entirely sure, it's my understanding we actually can shoot ballistic missiles down now, but it's through more conventional means. I'm glad that I missed mutually assured destruction, at least, I mean, not missed it, but like, I was too young to understand what was going on with that at the time. But it's nice seeing you, Mike. If you guys have not seen other stuff from Mike Wilkerson, he actually runs Two Guys Talking Podcasting, and he has a bunch of cool podcasts. And I meant to message you earlier, Mike. I actually just watched the Star Trek 2009 podcast, the perspective review on Star Trek 2009. It was very interesting. Very interesting. I love the philosophy behind Star Trek. Steven says, been watching your videos for a long time. Keep it up. Thank you. Billy Bob says, you deserve more subs. You should tell everyone on your Facebook and Reddit and everything else that. J2the R says, howdy. Ranger says, let's make common sense common again. You got my vote. Caleb says, plan on becoming a cop. Thanks for all the videos. Thank you for watching. Jacob says, hi. J2the R says, is that an Impala you're sitting in? God, no. No, this is not an Impala that I'm sitting in. This is my Ford 500 that I bought when it was new, that is now 11 years old. It is not an Impala. Here, let's watch this. 148,808 miles on it. As you can see, I'm really raking in the dough here doing YouTube videos. Driving the 11-year-old Ford 500 with 150,000 miles on it. Johnny Reb says, what's your opinion on the NFL protest? I don't have an opinion on it. I didn't watch sports before. I don't watch sports now. So it doesn't matter to me, really. I don't follow football, baseball, basketball. I'm too short and fat to do any of those things anyway. So, I don't care. I'm not offended as a fan that they're not kneeling for the national anthem. It was pretty cool that one guy that was an Army Ranger came out there and was like, no, everybody else can sit down, but I'm going to stand out here because I serve my country, and I like the national anthem. That's testicular fortitude. Mike Wilkerson says, but they miles of love. I don't get it, Mike. You're going to have to help me out with that one. I don't speak Wilkerson. Elizy says, hi. Mike says, you mentioned Star Trek. What's your favorite series and why? I like Star Trek DS9. Please don't start thumbs downing right now. I like Star Trek DS9 because it's Star Trek in the ghetto. And they have to, like, make do with what they have, and nothing's perfect. And the only thing I don't like about Star Trek and the philosophy of Star Trek is that, like, everything's perfect all the time. Like, we're perfect, and we do everything perfect, and the Federation does everything perfect. And Deep Space Nine was the imperfection of the universe. They were on the far edge of the galaxy, the far edge of their, like, known space, and there's wars going on, and they have to, like, interoperate with the locals and get them on their side. And they had, like, one of my favorite cop characters ever was Odo on Star Trek DS9, because he was the constable of the station, and he liked to use his brain to solve problems instead of phasering everything, which is kind of cool. Like, he like outsmart people, used his skills to outsmart people, which was really interesting. And Deep Space Nine had my all-time favorite Star Trek character, and that was Miles O'Brien, Chief O'Brien, who was outranked by everyone else who was a major character on Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. And that character became a large character on Deep Space Nine. But even though he was outranked by everyone always asked his opinion. He's like my spirit animal. And he always had good opinions. Like, he was the expert opinion. But he always got asked his opinion. He was the expert on all sorts of stuff. But then it was always him that got punished when something went wrong. Like, it always went sideways for him. I really like him. I like that show. Billy Bob says people get too obsessed with sports. Hey, whatever people like, it's not my thing. Diego says, I love your YouTube. Thank you, Diego. Please tell your friends. Karimu Walker says, what would you do if you had an appointment for a physical and written test from two different police departments on the same date, but one is your city while the other is in a nearby state? I would go take the physical and the written test for whatever agency I wanted to work for more, and then I would call and leave a message for the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, or whatever the agency says, or whatever the agency has that does the tests, like whatever municipal entity or body it was that was giving the test. I would call or send them a letter thanking them for the opportunity and advising them that you had a personal issue that came up that day and you're very sorry you're not going to be able to attend, because that's the professional thing to do. Probably won't change your chances at all. They probably won't reschedule your appointment, but the next time your name comes around, nobody's going to say, hey, that was the guy that just never showed up. Not saying every place does that, he was the guy that never showed up thing, but people will remember if you send a letter and say, I'm very sorry for not showing up. I had a personal issue that day. Ranger says, hey, what about UFC and MMA? I live MMA. I have a hard time getting into any professional sports. I do like the fact that when MMA comes on, there's a bunch of private investigator jobs that come with it, because they're big sporting events, and the associations that put on the big sporting events, you have to pay a lot of money to show it in bars, so they like hiring cops to go check and see if the bars are actually showing it or not. Those are nice. Good side jobs. Johnny Rep says, the only sport I watch is NASCAR anyway, so I don't really have an opinion on it. Well, I doubt you're going to see NASCAR fighting about standing for the national anthem. That's like the hillbilly sport du jour. So, Diego says, are you still a cop? Yes, I actually just came from court. Just got done testifying, won my motion. So I feel very good about myself today. Billy Bob says, yes, thanks. Billy Bob says, how extensive is the physical? It depends on where you're at. In Illinois, we have the power test. It's like a 1.5 mile run in like 13:48 for people that are 21. And you get more time as you get on older in life. And then you have to bench press 98% of your body weight and do like 38 sit-ups. It's really not that difficult. Brian Waller says, my buddy's a rookie cop and kicking ass, 20 arrests in 3 weeks, almost all felonies. Hey, in a lot of places you can do that. You can do that around here if you wanted to. The guy that's willing to go out and work can get a lot of work done. 067439 says, rookie cops eat donuts, veteran cops eat muffins. I like the subtle sexual reference there. Wrestling Soup says, is there a rivalry between city and state troopers, or is it just a myth? You have to understand there's 4,000 police agencies approximately nationwide, right? And so somewhere I'm sure the local cops and the state troopers have some sort of rivalry. Around here, that's just not the case. It hasn't been the case most places that I've seen. It's kind of like the rivalry between sports teams, right? Like, you can have a rivalry and not be angry about it, right? Like, I'm sure there's places where they're angry about it and they like to hate each other, but hasn't been my experience. Johnny Reb says that awkward moment when you are sitting on the crapper and your sergeant walks in and catches you watching live YouTube videos. At least he's not catching you streaming live YouTube videos. Watching from Hawaii. Hi, Epic. Thank you. Karamu says, thank you. Became I have two on the same date and time. Well, I would send a letter to whichever one you're going to go to. It doesn't matter which one you don't go to in my book or anybody else's book. But I would send a letter to them or call them and thank them. Sending a letter might help because that might actually get put on your file if they're keeping a file of all their applicants. And then, I mean, that shows a significant amount of professionalism. It might help you later on. It's not going to hurt. What's it cost you, 70 cents? Send them a letter. Mike Wilkerson says, what cream, salve, oil, or pixie dust are using to combat the I don't typically shave my face since time began. I am suffering from falling off the shave faceness. I use the sensitive skin edge, and then I got a Mach 3 turbo, and then I shave. Big kid rules. What are you going to do? I had to shave. Now I look like I'm 15. Elva Daniel says, the ranger that went on the field for the anthem had to apologize, sounded forced. I haven't followed it very much. That's unfortunate if they had to apologize. But again, just like the shave in the face, big kid rules. Like if the league said you have to go apologize, then you do. Otherwise you don't have a job. It's being an adult. Wrestling Soup says, love your Patreon content. Thank you for all the videos. I wish I could do more on Patreon. Patreon's coming out with new stuff all the time. I would love to do like live streams on Patreon, but they're still working on that. As soon as that comes up, I'm going to start doing that. Michael says, I'm under 5 years in LE, so still kind of a rookie. But guy, I remembered how stupid I was the first few years. Kudos to all the people that were there to say slow down. Keep those guys in mind. People like me would really like a desk job in about 10 years when they're looking at retirement. Whoever you work with would love a desk job. So keep those guys in mind. And when you're their boss, you get in that desk spot. Mike Wilkerson. In what case have you ever seen a veteran cop's perspective decision be overridden by a younger, we'll leave that one out, perhaps not so, no smart, newer cop, not looking for details, just the example. That a veteran's cop's decision was overridden by a younger officer? I haven't really seen that. Sometimes younger officers just don't listen, but I haven't seen a case where it was overridden. Sometimes I've seen supervisors, people that get promoted with like 3 or 5 years on, that then decide not to listen to the guys that have been doing it for 20 years and had 6 different jobs in the agency. They tend to learn pretty fast, though. They tend to learn pretty fast. After they screw things up a couple of times and all the vets are like, we told them, they start to learn that, much like the military, there's not a lot of parallels I can draw between the military and civilian life because I wasn't in the service, but from what I've heard from guys that are in the military, if you're a brand new buck lieutenant, and you're a brand new lieutenant, and you know the master sergeant tells you, hey, you might not want to do that, probably not a good idea to do that. So when guys are a sergeant, they got 5 years on, a guy with 20 years on, and you know he's done a whole bunch of stuff in the agency, had a pretty distinguished career, says, hey Sarge, you probably don't want to do that. Might be good to listen to him. Oddball question: policemen balls, are they silent fundraisers? Good question. I don't know. Chris Griffin says, are you straight? I am. I'm even married with kids. My marriage is terminal. I have kids with her, so that's what that is. Yes, I am straight. If I was gay, I would tell you, because I don't care. It would be a lot easier being gay, though. Don't you think? Like, you want to watch sports and drink beer all day, you could just do that, right? Like, hey, he likes watching sports and drinking beer all day, too. I think there'd be a lot less fights if I was gay, but unfortunately, it's just not the way the world worked. I was made the way I was. I love women. Goddamn one says, how does it feel to watch a rookie go through the growth pains and learning process? I only get them for a few months, and then, you know, if I have somebody on my shift that's new, I try to direct them, but it's, you know, it's fun. It's actually fun for me. I like seeing the light bulb come on when they start understanding stuff. Johnny Reb says, I shot a hole through the roof of my patrol car when I was a rookie. I earned the title of sunroof. Yeah, you don't want to chamber the shotgun shell before you put it into the rack. It's not advisable. Moon Goose says, how are you today? I'm great. Mike Wilkerson says, the rioting in STL has thankfully diminished. What might a veteran cop share with a newer officer that would benefit them in regards to quelling protests or riots? There really isn't a lot that I can put on video about quelling protests or riots. The one thing I can give real knowledge on is you don't ever want to be caught as a police officer alone in a large group of angry people. That's how guys get hurt. So if you show up as a new guy, or anybody really, show up to a situation where you realize this has gone out of control, there's people swinging bats and stuff like that, you don't want to go into it alone. And when you go into it as a group, you need to stay together as a group. We have kind of an unofficial rule where I'm at, that when there's a homicide scene, any type of critical incident, there's a large group of angry people, or whatever, we don't split up into groups smaller than 2. You always use the buddy system. Just like the Boy Scouts. I may have stolen that idea from the Boy Scouts. Muhammad says, I once pulled a parasite from my dog's anus and mixed it with some noodles and gave it to my babysitter for dinner. That is very random. Thank you. HMS Hood says, do officers get upset or angry if you ask for a second form of ID if you get pulled over by an unmarked cruiser? I have seen multiple comments that say cops get pissed at that. How much ID do you want? Like, you have to be reasonable with it, right? They're in uniform. You're going to ask them for an ID that I can make in my basement. If I have the whole uniform, what would keep me from making an ID? Right? Like, you have to be reasonable with that. So if they actually show you, like they're in uniform, and they show you their ID, and you're like, I want to see another form of ID, what are they going to show you? I'd be like, I got nothing else to show you, homie. My boss can verify that I'm a cop when you're in jail if you don't now get out of the car. Or whatever it is that you're arguing about, right? Like, you're going to sign this ticket. I'm not signing that ticket until I see a second form of ID. All right, well, then my boss can verify that I'm a cop when you're in jail because you won't sign the ticket. So now I have to arrest you because I can't bond you right here on the street. Like, that's not going to go well. Jaden Lamb retracted his message. Billy Bob says, did you ever have an eye exam for your department? Did they actually look in your eyes, or just take an eye test? Just took an eye test. It was a long time ago now, like 11 years ago. JB says, any advice for someone looking to begin a career in law enforcement at the age of 33? Get on it. A lot of places you can't start it after you're 35. Jaden Lamb says, I lost my headphones on the school bus this morning, but finally I got them back. Yay, good for you. Jeff says, what are your thoughts on people in their late 30s, early 40s starting out in law enforcement? A lot of places you can't do it. If you can physically do the job and you want to do it, and you're still pumped about it, then do it. If you can do it, but there's a lot of places you can't. After 35, it's over. Mike Wilkerson asks, how are sovereign citizens dealt with in your area / sphere of influence? Sovereign citizens, ideally, are dealt with like no one else. Right? Like, just everyone else. You deal with them the same way you would deal with anybody else. License and insurance. Well, I don't have to provide blah, 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 blah. No. Your license and insurance. Pile of paperwork about why they don't have to provide license and insurance. Take it, slide it in your pocket. License and insurance. That's it. There's no... I'm not going to argue with you about it. Well, why are you keeping my papers? Well, those are now evidence against you in this case. Do you have a license or not? You don't have a license, I'm out of the car. You're getting arrested, your car's getting towed. That's it. We just have to keep in mind that if people are providing us that stuff, they're showing us that they're a sovereign citizen, then we need to be on guard that this could turn very, very violent. So we may call for additional backup once we get that paperwork, but we're not going to engage in an argument. I make it a general rule to not engage with the sovereign citizens in an argument about anything. In fact, that's a good rule for any traffic stop. License and insurance. What'd you stop me for? No. You're not going to hold on to the license and insurance until, I tell you what you're stopped for. License and insurance is about my safety and your safety, so it's simple. I'll be happy to discuss that with you, like two responsible adults having a conversation. As soon as I get your license and insurance, I need to know who I'm talking to. That's all it is. There's nothing legally different about dealing with sovereign citizens. We just have to keep in mind that the situation could very likely become extraordinarily dangerous because a lot of sovereign citizens really believe the BS that they've been taught. And I think some of them are actually victims of organizations that are teaching them this stuff and, convincing them that these are real laws. These are really the way things are. Matthew Graves says, what are you carrying today? The Glock 22. That's what I'm carrying today. Kidney cord, that's what I carry. Wrestling Soups asks, is sensitivity training a regular upkeep as an officer, or is it only for those officers that fail psyche evals or have a period of tremendous stress? I've never been in sensitivity training. It's used the same way as we use in the corporate world. Occasionally you'll get somebody that comes in and they're like, oh, we're going to do sensitivity training this month, and everybody's got to do it. You're like, all right, whatever. And sometimes people get sent off to it. I don't know anybody that's ever been sent to a sensitivity training, and I don't know if I've ever been to one. If I have, it's been years. And it was the whole agency. Fausti says, any advice on what to do as a rookie that rookies always do for a future police officer? What not to do as a rookie that rookies always do for a future police officer. Let me give you one piece of advice. Get off on your own, right? It's your first day out. Go pull a traffic stop, self-initiated, run that traffic stop, and clear it. Because if you don't pull your stop your first night, you're never going to do it. It's going to take you months to do it. Because that's like the scariest thing for when you're brand new. Everybody thinks they're going to be all excited, but it's the scariest thing to do a traffic stop your first time, because you've been told about how dangerous traffic stops are, and when you've done them in the past, there's always been somebody with you. Go out and do it your first night. That's my advice. Jeets Lance says, do you have any knowledge on dealing with gang members and why gangs exist, doing a paper for school? Man, you can Google that stuff up. That you could write a master's thesis on gangs and why gangs exist. I can't get into all that, I'm sorry. Mike says, what is going to fall off of you making you ineligible for being a Leo after 35? I don't know. It's just the rules. We don't tell people that they can't continue being a cop after 35, but we tell them they can't start after 35. I don't know. Nothing that I can think of. Not necessarily anything I can think of. Muhammad says, I once pulled corn from my anus and made soup using my warm diarrhea. If you think I'm going to stop saying these things on here, you're wrong. Super Slicer says, I plan on being a cop after doing 4 years in the military. That's a good plan. Hey, you may want to just try staying in the military. I hear it's a good career for some people. Brian says, I love these Sovereign City vids, LOL. They do make for an entertaining time. Dove says, how do you handle situations when you run into people you arrested once or twice when you're off duty and with your family? Most of them don't give me any problems. Knock on wood. I guess maybe I don't give the impression that I'd be a good person to ambush off duty. I do know there are people at my work that I've arrested that have watched these, and maybe that also gives them the impression that I would not be a good person to try to ambush when I'm off duty. Chris says, do cops make sure their nuts are smooth? No. Never had a nut check. Michael says, you've ever been in any specialized fields? Yeah. I'm not going to read the people that are just... Alright, well, if we're just going to troll this, then I'm just going to block you. Right? Nobody needs the cursing for no reason. Gordon says, hey, I finally caught on one of these live streams. Howdy from the Live Free or Die state. Howdy from Illinois, the land of Lincoln. Laurette says, do you have any tips for someone wanting to get into law enforcement as a career? Got a whole series on it. You want to be a cop on YouTube? Check it out. They're all on there. It's lots of advice about it. Even I can't say that. The Blue Waffle? No, that's not happening. Alright, Mike says, which feature film do you think got copping right? I don't think a feature film has ever really gotten it right from what I've seen. However, Southland, the first couple episodes of Southland were a good compression of like an entire field training process in a major metro area with lots of crime, compressed down to like a 2-day time period. So like you see that, you can kind of say, yeah, that's a lot of what it's like. But, like, not in 2 days. I really like the first couple episodes. Super Slice says, do you need to wear a cup? No, I drink from it. I wish you'd let me get a pouch for this. That'd be awesome. James says, yo, what up? Great videos. Thanks, dog. You are welcome. Kentucky says, how long you been in law? 11 years. Mike Wilkerson says, copping, being a cop, rather than perhaps scoring smack. I'd have to say Southland and Reno 911. If you cross those two, you'd probably be pretty close to actual police work. I can't think of any movies off the top of my head that really get it right. I'm gonna have to think about that, Mike. Movies that really, see, I don't watch a lot of police movies. Cop movies that really get it right. I don't know. I have to think about it. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Black Dolphin says, do you think rookie cops have a different attitude to the job than a veteran? Do you think rookies are any good out of the academy? Well, they're good, but people always get better the more they do things. If you hire a plumber that just started being a plumber, he's not going to be as good as somebody that's done it for 25 years, most of the time. Ben Cunningham says, if you tell a sovereign citizen why they're being stopped, they just tell you that it doesn't apply to them, especially if it's a vehicle code violation. That's very true. Thoughts on many of the high-profile police shootings, such as Mike Brown, Tamir Rice, etc.? My saying things about that is not going to change anybody's opinion on it, so I'm not going to. I don't watch LIPD. No, Johnny Reb, I don't watch that. That's like, why would I go home and be at work? That's crazy. Makwa says, what's your opinion on the citizens that conceal and carry? There's one thing that I have made no qualms about politically on this channel the whole time. I personally, Tommy, I support people's rights to conceal carry. That's it. Whatever legislative structure the state's going to put in place for it, I think people should have the option. Good, responsible adults should have the option to conceal carry to protect themselves. Smith & Wesson Model 19 says, do you have any experience with pepperball guns or left lethal beanbags? Yes, both of them. I was certified on both of them for a time period. I don't think I've ever used them on anybody. I've never had a use of force incident with pepperball or beanbags. My agency doesn't use beanbag guns anymore. Fauci says it's a bad credit score, a big deal on getting hired at a police department. It can be if it's very, very bad. Super Slicer says End of Watch is a pretty good cop movie. I agree, but that's like taking a 20-year career and compressing it. A lot of that is very true. Like a lot of the stuff that was in End of Watch is things that would happen to a police officer in their career, like in LA or in New York or in Chicago, but it's like your whole career compressed down. Like all those things would happen over the time period of like 15 to 20 years. Have you ever checked out Gavin Sim videos? What do you think of them and him? I have no idea who that is. Does Police Academy get it right? It gets it right in more ways than you could imagine. Gordon says, thoughts on constitutional carry? We just passed it here in New Hampshire this year. Whatever legislative device the state wants to use, I'm pretty much cool with. But I think everyone should have the option. I will go out one step further and I'll say that places that require a license, it should be shall issue. The state should have to prove a reason that you are not responsible enough to exercise your rights. That honor should be on the state. It shouldn't be on you to say why you have to exercise those rights. I think that's a reasonable attitude to take. Quick thinking. List off a series of things that will get you the instant red flag in regards to activity will ensure you're not get hired as a Leo. Felonies, any type of felony, and crime of moral turpitude. So, while in many places, getting into a fist fight at a bar at 22 and then trying to get hired as a cop at 23 would be a red flag, a DQ, not everywhere is like that. I know people that have done time in county and then a couple years later got jobs as cops. I'm not saying that's right, I'm just saying that it exists. Now, on the flip side, there are some things that no agency could overlook. If you've stolen from an employer, you might as well just find another line of work. That's one that pops right up in my head. If you've perjured yourself in court, then you've been convicted of perjury, they can't use you, you can't testify. You can't be a cop. That's a huge red flag. Instant red flag. If you've had 27 jobs in the last 2 years because none of them fit you, that is a huge red flag, and any good agency should not be hiring you. Unless you work for a temp agency, but in that case I would put down that I work for a temp agency, not that I work for these 27 places. Can't think of much else right off the top of my head, but crimes of moral turpitude and like stealing and perjury are definite no-goes. Ricardo says, hello from Italy, Italy, Italy. He's in a stadium. Jesse says, you think some of these celebrities who threaten the president on live TV and whatever should be arrested? I don't know. That's up to the Secret Service and the judges. I don't deal with presidential threats. Not very often, at least. The closest I get to dealing with presidential threats is the Secret Service says, can you come to this house with us? And I'm like, totally, I'll be right here. Let me know how that goes. My favorite part of the job is that I get to drink coffee all day and it's socially acceptable. If you're gonna talk like that, Chris, I'm not gonna read any of your comments. Mike Wilkerson says, have you been watching The Shield a lot lately? How many detectives are entrenched inside your department and departments in general? Is there a percentage? My department fluctuates quite a bit. I've said my department's between, we fluctuate between 100 and 150 officers. And we have, I think, 8 guys assigned to detectives right now. I haven't been watching The Shield. I'm sorry. I told you I would start. I did listen to your podcast, though, and it was cool. But I do have to start watching The Shield. I'm on afternoons right now, so I don't have a lot of TV time, other than watching TV with the kids in the morning. Bunger48 says, movies and television never get it right because everyone is so bleak and serious and never put in the time to do all the required paperwork. If we did movies and TV about the paperwork, it'd be over. 007 Vaughn says, hey, Tommy, my agency, I just got hired and switched from being armed security police to being unarmed security, but we still are the government, not a private company. Heard of other agencies doing that. So you work for the Chicago Airport Police, or what used to be the Chicago Aviation Police, now Chicago Aviation Security? Is that what I'm reading into here? That's the only one I know of. I knew a couple guys that worked on there many years ago. I haven't talked to them in a while. They always kind of considered it like the best security job you could get, though. What do you think rookie cops have to offer veteran cops? A lot of new knowledge from the academy that we might not have heard of. I always start a training session with, hey, what do you know about this issue? Because new stuff comes up all the time. And I can't always stay up on every single detail of what's going on in law enforcement. Sometimes I learn things from the new guys. FML says, what do you think about the legalization of marijuana? Here in Massachusetts, we are limited and getting an OUI marijuana is very difficult. Our hands are so tied nowadays. I don't care. I personally I don't care about the legalization of marijuana. I never smoked pot. I don't care. I think that, just like alcohol, right? Like, if you're so high you can't drive, then you can't drive. You're intoxicated. Super Slicer says, what are your thoughts on all the football players kneeling for the pledge? We already did that. Super Troopers, who wants a mustache ride? I do. I actually like Shenanigans. That's where I got Shenanigans from. If you watch my videos, you hear me say that a lot. Mary says, is it hard for a woman with no military background, but if they have siblings in the military? I have no idea. Sony Chu says, what's the difference between a police officer and a sheriff? I have a whole video on that. Check it out. It's police versus sheriff. It's up on the channel. Gordon says, New Hampshire is the last state not to require wearing a seatbelt if you're an adult. We also don't require car insurance in most cases. Thoughts? Have fun with that? I don't know. I think car insurance is a pretty reasonable thing to require people to have if they're going to drive on the road. Liability car insurance. Like, if my car hits somebody else's car, I should probably have insurance to cover that. Yo, how are you, man? It's great to see you from Garrett. Nice to see you, Garrett. I am here. I'm doing good. How long you being a cop from Louisiana Lights and Sirens Collector? 11 years. Zach says, what's your opinion on working in a big urban agency versus a small rural agency? I've never worked for a small rural agency. The closest I ever got was working as a camp ranger at a Boy Scout camp in a small rural area, and it was fun. I don't know. Drove a little stick shift pickup truck a lot. I don't have any experience with police work in small rural areas. 007 Vaughn says, I work in Oregon. Well, I got nothing for you then. I can't even remember the last time I was in Oregon. Black Dolphin says, in Ireland, police cannot do security at the same time, and security can't do police work. Likewise, a little annoying for voluntary police officers. That does sound a little annoying. Chris Griffin says, can you train me how to be as sexy as you? Start eating donuts, only lift weights, mess up your knees and ankles so you can't do cardio anymore, and you will be, and then sleep in a shortbread and smoke cigarettes, and hopefully your spine will compress and you'll get fat and you'll be just as ugly as me. Jacob says, what about a disqualification due to a diversity program activity not considered a conviction and never went to court? A diversion program. Like a court diversion. We only use court diversion here for tickets. So I'm not entirely sure what it is exactly you're talking about. And I don't want to give you bad advice. Do you know donut operator? No, I do not. Jace says, who gets better pay, a police officer or a military police officer? That would depend on where the police officer works. Some police officers make an awful lot of money. We get into the six figures, into the high six figures. It's some agencies roll like high for me, right? Like make $200,000, you make $250,000 a year. That's high six figures for me. Like that's police officers can make a lot of money, especially supervisors. And military police don't make very much. But if you go out in rural areas, a lot of those guys are not making a lot of money at all. I've seen cops that make $10 an hour out in rural areas. Now you also have to balance that against the costs, right? I mean, if you're living in a barracks and getting fed and all that from the military, you don't have a lot of costs. Your end of the day money that you have in your pocket might be more. And a lot of police officers in rural areas, the cost of living is extremely low. And where you look at NYPD, you know, there's not a lot of guys there making less than six figures. It's very expensive to live in New York. Oh my God, now I missed my spot. Cop shades or mustache? Neither, I don't like either. Do you like pizza? I do like stuffed crust pizza. Thoughts on Mike Wood Jr., the former BPD officer? I have no idea who that is. I don't follow hardly anything on social media other than people that follow me. My surname in Italian means grenade. Cool. Gary White says, hi, and how hard is it being a cop? It's the hardest job you'll ever have to learn and the easiest job you'll ever have to do. That's what I like to tell people. Mike Wilkerson said, if I had a cruller on the right-hand side of the dashboard and a Boston cream donut on the left side, which way are you leaning? Left. Definitely Boston cream. Unless the cruller had chocolate and sprinkles on it. Because I am only a man, I can't resist sprinkles. Mary says, if a woman wants to go into law enforcement, don't have a military background, but they have siblings in the military, can they get into being a cop? Yeah, of course. I know plenty of women that are cops that were never in the military. Garrett says, I'm in the Army 31 Bravo with the military police. Thank you for saying that, because I would have no idea what that is. I get out when my 6 years is up. Could that help me get hired over people who are not in the military, such as federal job? Some police departments see military experience as see education. They would see 4 years of military experience. They'll waiver that for 4 years of education. So it could definitely help you. You gotta shop around and find out where those places are at, though. Louisiana Lights and Sirens says, do you all run Blue Lights and Sirens or Code 3? I know the Mastercom Sirens are popular up there. We run a lot of Code 3 and Federal up here. The light bar on my car is a Code 3 MX something or another, and I have a Code 3 light control / siren control box. We used to have Federal boxes, the Federal PA 300s, I think they were called. 48 Diamond says, support your local law enforcement. Thank you for your service, sir. Thank you for watching. Jesse says, have you seen the Flint, Michigan PD's application? It's hilarious, and he has questions I've never seen before. No, I haven't, but I will look that up later. Jacob says, can you tell me how much, if any, placement in the diversion program at 18 will affect my applications? I have no idea what the diversion program is in your state. We don't use that here, and I don't want to give you bad advice. Suggest speaking to an attorney if you're looking to get a police job and you have prior criminal convictions or diversions or anything and had to go to court. Big C says, can you post any videos on basic investigations like burgs, vandalism, and other basic crimes, just like you do on the report writing and notes taking? I don't know what else to write about it. I guess I could do more note-taking stuff, but that was rough. That was hard to do. What's your favorite portable coffee mug thermos thingy? In the description of almost all videos, there is a link for this thermos. It's the best thermos I've ever had. Thermos is the best coffee cup I've ever had. Thermos is not paying me anything. However, if you buy it through my link, I get like $1 or something from Amazon. This is the best one I've ever had. They're like $24. They're great. Heaven says, nice video, hail from France. Hello from Illinois. Hobbies? Camping. My current duty gun, Ricardo, I carry a Glock 35 with a TLR2 light mounted on it. Zach says, so what are your thoughts on rookie versus veteran cops? I am a CO looking at switching to the deputy side. You gotta go back to the beginning of the video. We're talking all about it. Do you know female police officers used to not be hired if they were too attractive, but not ugly either? Reason the department did not want them getting married, and if they did, dismissal. I have no idea about that. That seems like a really weird rule. Jesse says, it's crazy. Tell you not to wear chains, and asked if you've ever killed someone illegally. LOL, I was crying. Okay. I just reported a homeless guy to my town. They took my personal info, made a police report. Is this guy going to get my contact info? No, generally the way those work is unless an arrest was made and the information is subpoenaed, it never even makes it to the defense side. They don't get all that information unless they're charged and their attorney gets it. And hopefully by the time their attorney gets it, their attorney can be smart enough to be like, no, you don't need to know where that guy lives. Mary says, what is it like to do a police report? Currently, it looks like filling out boxes and then typing 4 or 5 paragraphs inside a word processor that doesn't work right. That's what it's like doing a police report. Gordon Kemp, I actually have a video on doing police reports. You should watch it. It's way back there, but you can find it. Gordon Kemp says, I think car insurance is a good idea. There are benefits to not making it mandatory. Car insurance is dirt cheap here. Most people get it. It's the opposite from how Obamacare works or doesn't work. Well, I don't know anything about not. We've always required car insurance for as long as I've been a cop here. How hard is it being a cop day to day? It depends on the weather most of the time. It's hot. It's really hot out right now. It's going to be a rough day for me. I actually have to leave to go to work soon. Andrew says, thank you. You are welcome. Do you attend advanced training courses on your own time, not sponsored by the department? No. My department sponsors me to a lot of stuff. I honestly don't have time to go to stuff on my own because they are very good to me about sending me to any training classes I want to take. Louisiana Lights and Sirens says, how many Code 3 calls do you get per shift average? During afternoons, it can be 3 or 4. During midnights, maybe 2 or 3, depending on the time of year. On day shift, there's fewer, but there's more need to use lights and sirens because there are people on the road a lot during the day shift. Black Dolphin says, these rules were removed in the 70s. About the women, yeah. Was the academy like? Stressful. You mind if I ask, what was your craziest police story? Dude, I got lots of crazy police stories. None of them are fit for the internet. What's the oldest person you've interacted with as a Leo that was autistic? What kind of training education are there provided for you/newer folks? The oldest person I've interacted with as a Leo who was autistic was a friend of mine who used to be one of my sergeants. His name is Paul. I doubt he's watching, but if he is, hi Paul. His son, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, his son is autistic and is in his 30s. And I also have a good friend who is he's autistic. I knew his sister back when I worked at the scout camp. She was the pool director, and she used to bring him to camp all the time. He is also now, he's almost exactly my age. So I have a friend who is autistic. He has a job. He pushes carts at Sam's Club or something right now. And he's a friend of mine. I party with him all the time. His name is Chris. And so it's a pretty regular thing. We have, I think it's 16 hours of mandatory training for people with mental disabilities right now. And I know they're doing it at the academy too. Do you think that officers in the same department should date or not? There's an officer in my department that asked me out, and I'm curious if you think it's appropriate or not. Depending on your department policies, I don't think it's inappropriate as long as no one's the supervisor of someone else. How young have you seen police officers, and what was their experience like? The youngest cops that I personally met were 19. I think it's Georgia allows 19-year-old cops. Gary says, when I'm 21, I want to go into being a cop. Do you ever deal with feminists? Sure I do, but it doesn't come up. Police officer, like how their people's political views very rarely come up when I'm on calls. It's really not like the internet would portray. JC says, I read in a newspaper a cop in my town was caught soliciting an underage girl. What do you think about law enforcement officers get caught doing a felony or a sex crime? They should be fired. Like, what other YouTube channels would you recommend? If you like funny stuff, Mike the Cop is really good. If you like opinion-based stuff, Officer 401, I'm sure anybody who's watching this should have heard of Officer 401 by now. But go check him out. If you like the current event stuff, you got questions about current event stuff and what retired and current police officers think about them, you should go over to Leo Roundtable. They do commentary on current events. Fuzz Fam, if you like funny stuff, you like seeing like the lighter side, the at-home side of police work, go check out Fuzz Fam. Deputy Tatum does things when he's actually out on the street. At least he used to do things when he had videos of him like out on the road actually doing enforcement action. Those right off the top of my head. Oh, Miami Police Vlogs. Somebody brought up Miami Police Vlogs. That is the official YouTube channel of the Miami Police Department. So that's what the bosses want you to see. Not saying he's doing a bad job, but that is their official YouTube channel. A lot of interesting information about Miami PD though. I follow them, but I don't watch. I'm not going to say that I watch all of anybody's stuff. I only have so many hours in the day, and a lot of them, my YouTube time is spent watching gun videos. I gotta be honest with you. Cutlery says, it's been a pleasure. Have a good day and be safe. Thank you. Ricardo says, have you ever risked your life on the job? Yeah, quite regularly. My mother's car insurance is about $600, and it's because she got a speeding ticket. And should she put the car insurance in my name? That's not always a good idea, because you might be violating the law where you're at, and she might not be covered under the insurance if it's in your name. Any general interactivity with citizens and drones yet? Had several notes seen to Colonel Chris and I, and it's amazing how it offers another crazy hemisphere to elite. Citizens and drones, like drones being used in the air by police departments. Currently, they're pretty restricted by the FAA. You have to have like a special license for police departments to run them. So although I know of police departments that have drones, I don't know of any that are using them. Maybe there are out there. Somebody went and got the licenses, but most of the smaller places by me are not using them. So curious as to what you think of us idiots who have decided to get a criminal justice degree. Is it a useless degree when the PD teaches you the applications during field training? Well, I'm not going to say that criminal justice is a useless degree. It's just not the best that you can get. As an FTO, what age is the oldest rookie you've had trained, and what were the advantages, disadvantages versus younger rookies? I've had guys in their 30s before, but they were coming in from other agencies. What about Donut Operator? He's a former Leo and has some cool videos. I'll have to check him out. People keep telling me about him. I always forget because I do these and I go to work and then I forget about it later on. And that's it. And it's been almost an hour, so it's time for me to cut it. Otherwise, YouTube has seizures and thinks that I'm hiding things in there that I don't want people to see. Gordon says, how much do you charge for bodyguard work? It depends on the work. And Loch Ness Monster says, scroll the beer back. I wish, but it doesn't sound like it's coming back anytime soon. That is it for today. That is a whole rookie officer versus veteran officer and some thoughts and tying it into my love of history on the YouTube channel today. So until next week, you guys be safe and take care of each other.